Welcome to Weird Web Radio, an explorer's guide to hidden worlds of the paranormal and occult, reality-expanding experiences, and the downright weird and bizarre. With your host, Lonnie Scott.
Okay, Cyndi, it is bonus audio time. Are you ready?
I am ready.
She says she's ready, but that's what they all say. All right. What famous person's resting place would you most like to visit?
Oh, what famous person's resting place would I most like to visit? I want to say Doreen Valiente.
Nice. You know where it is?
I'm trying to remember. As I was saying that, it was like, shit, I don't remember where it is. And I know I should know where this is. Like, I know in my mind, I know where it is.
Yeah, I don't know where it's at.
I do know where it's at. I can't think of the town in England. I've never been there.
So somewhere in England.
Somewhere in England. Who else?
Fair enough.
What other dead person's grave would I like to visit?
I was going to say, there's lots of dead people in England.
Oh, that's such a good question, isn't it? I don't really think that spirits are in graveyards.
No, I don't either. But I have a theory about that.
I think I just did this seance thing. Like, speaking of spiritualist, I wanted to do like this old school kind of seance. Mm-hmm. And I was going to do it at one of the 3 graveyards out here. I said to someone, well, because I guaranteed that's the place where there'll be the fewest spirits is in the graveyard.
Yeah. Now, my theory about when my best friend died back in 2010, his girlfriend was leaning on me quite a bit for support, but she's a pretty hardcore atheist. She doesn't believe in shit. So she was, not only was he dead, but he was gone to her. And I explained to her, and I never really spoke my theory about graveyards out loud. It was just my theory, and I realized that was kind of where I was at, and I've been there for a long time. And I explained to her in scientific terms with quantum theory and everything, entanglement and stuff. I'm just basically he may not be there in that grave, but it sure is a good way to get a direct line to him. It's kind of that theory of entanglement, things that have been connected always remain connected in some way. So why not? It's sort of the world's greatest, most expensive phone lines.
I think the Western way of dealing with dead people is so immensely screwed up. This is one of my favorite rants, is like how messed up I think how we deal with the dead and view the dead is, like in the mainstream view. But you're right, it could be a direct line. But I think like with my students and clients, we use like a valued object of the departed loved one, like a ring or something. I was just had a session with someone and I said, it's about the socks. And I described the socks to the person, and the person started crying because they were like, yes, it was that you're describing my dad's socks back to me. So I know that you're connected to him. So I think, it can maybe work at the graveyard, especially if you're with someone not like me who doesn't think that they're really strange and weird. Like, I love graveyards. I have no fear of graveyards, but it's just, I feel like we could treat our dead so much better than we do.
Yes, absolutely. I could not agree more. What would you suggest that we do to treat our dead better?
We could, I think the dead and gone kind of philosophy that we really have like the dominant Western culture, that when someone's dead, that they're gone. It's just, for me, it's so connected with the idea of, time being linear. And that somehow like people are like who we are, like who we truly are, like our souls are somehow so connected to like our physical embodiment, when I don't really, I see people like our embodiments are just like the clothes we're wearing for this particular gig that we're on. This particular life is a gig and we'll go on to a next one. So I just think more veneration of ancestors. And one thing I wrote this article and I was talking about healing the ancestors of place, because where I live, I intentionally, like, we moved here. I got pissed off and fed up with the city and packed us up and we moved here. And where I live is a really special, magical place. Lots of spirits, lots of ghosts, but it was also traditional Mi'kmaq territory. So that's the First Nations, in the States, it's American Indian. It's the First Nations tribe that lived on these lands for thousands of years before colonization. So I wrote a little bit about spirits of the land and how we honor the ancestors who lived in the place that we call home before us. And I was really surprised by the amount of people who contacted me saying that they'd never really thought of that before. So I thought that's another way we're really disconnected from the dead and our ancestors, that we don't think, maybe our new apartment building, like what was there before it was an apartment building. So I think it's just that whole idea of really being disconnected from each other, and also from the places that we live. It's like that. It's that gets to the huge problem of how disconnected we are from all the natural forces, whether it's, the spirits of the place where you live, or if it's your departed loved ones, or even if it's something like learning how to do plant magic and and to work with plant spirits in its spell. Like that disconnect, I think, is so pervasive, and I think the way we treat the dead and gone kind of approach is as a symptom of that.
Wow, very well said. I absolutely agreed. How about that?
Good.
I'm sitting here trying to find words. I'm like, words are hard.
They are hard sometimes.
So do you have a specific practice or some custom that you do when you visit a cemetery or a specific grave?
I have boys, and we are a quirky, funny, dark family. So we go to my hometown and visit my dad, and my other relatives are kind of all buried in the same place. And our ritual includes, there happens to be this quite amazingly beautiful, very colorful tombstone that's got like a full color Jesus on it. So a full color Jesus. It's like Technicolor Jesus. It's amazing. It's awesome. And so the family tradition has become that someone goes behind the Technicolor Jesus and goes to the bathroom. This is us, right? So this, not on anybody's grave. Like there's lines you don't cross. So
you are so my kind of people.
Don't go on.
We could be wonderful friends.
There's lines here, people. So I often go up the road, and there's some really fabulous white roses that were planted about 150 years ago up the road. And they're in one of the graveyards. That's the only place they grow. And so I'll go up there and steal them. Not really stealing, like define stealing. So the woman who owned the house that we own now, she's buried up the road. So I'll go up and visit and talk to her. I think, I really think graveyards are just places where people used to be.
Okay.
So yeah, but I do. Her name was Louise Christian. So I do honor Louise because, it's an awesome house that we have, and we love the location. And she lived here for a long time, and the Christians are one of the original village families. So I try to also honor her as one of the original settlers, but also balance with the fact that, the Mi'kmaq spirits of this place are the actual settlers of this land, and that we're all kind of imposers.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. Now, what do you believe awaits us after death? You sort of hinted at reincarnation in a previous answer.
So this is such a heavy question, and I have to say I have no idea.
That's a fair and honest. Yeah.
I know a lot of people have these big elaborate theories about Summerlands or the afterlife. I firmly believe in reincarnation because I have had so much experience it with myself, where I've met people and the only possible explanation is some kind of like carryover from a past life. And I've certainly had students and friends who've had amazing experiences that it really seems like that's the only possible explanation. I have no clue how reincarnation works. I think it's because we're all just recycled material. And
that's true.
And I think stuffing people full of chemicals and shoving them in metal boxes in the ground probably screws up with the natural process of reincarnation and a whole bunch of other things.
I think you might be right. Yeah. I don't know what exactly the ramifications of all that are, but it's a terrible, terrible modern practice of what we do with our dead, the actual bodies. You're absolutely right. Well, with that said, would you leave your body to science or to a body farm?
No, I'm going to be burned.
You're going to be burned. You and me both.
Burned. Either that or I've also said sometimes just like, I want to die at home. And when I die, kids, just like put me in the wheelbarrow and take me out behind the house and just leave me there to decompose like the rest of the animals. Like I have no issue with this.
Yeah. If only that were legal, right?
Right. Well, I mean, you have to get, it's kind of thing you have to get caught doing.
Yeah.
We live 45 minutes away from, like, it takes 45 minutes for the police to get to our house in a hurry.
Oh, no. In a hurry. When the weather's good.
When the weather's good and the lights are on, they get the sirens, they're going full tilt. Takes them 45 minutes to get here. Wow.
That could be scary.
It's actually really liberating, but it is kind of like, it's surprisingly liberating. But it's not like the police are going to know what I'm up to on any given day. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, sure. Well, let's go a different direction for a minute. What's a book that you have most gifted to other people, especially people who might be interested in witchcraft or paganism, the occult?
Oh, that's a really good question. The book I have probably most gifted to people is actually Llewellyn's complete book of correspondences.
Really?
Yeah, I know. You think I would come up with something more like esoteric or something?
Yeah. So why that one?
This is a practical book. If you want to do some witchcraft, you got to. This is going to because first of all, a lot of people don't know it exists. A lot of people will have like all the Christopher Penczak books, or you know what I mean. Like they'll have all these books. At least my friends, and I'll be like, "Do you have Llewellyn's complete book of correspondences?" And they'll be like, "I've never heard of it." And it's just a fabulous book because I'm all about encouraging people to write their own spells. And it's a great book, where you can get all the correspondences you need to write a great spell. So I've given that book quite a bit. Yeah, I love that book. And then the book that Sarita Deste edited, the Sacred Fires anthology about Hekate, would be the one that I have probably gifted and recommended the most. After that,
yeah, I think I have everything she wrote. I'm pretty sure I have everything she writes. Yeah, highly highlighted too. Yeah. Yep, she's very good at putting that information out there.
She really is. Like she's really good at weaving like a really great web of history, and then and that way you can kind of just build your own.
But
there.
I will say one thing about her writing, and maybe I just haven't found it yet, but something that sets you apart from her. I don't have any, after reading Sarita's stuff, I don't really have a in-depth idea of who she is as a Hekatean witch of any kind. I mean, I have some idea, but not like you. I feel like I know you from your writing. I feel like I have an idea of what to expect if I were to enter ritual with you. I think when you say Hekate, I know what you mean. I don't get ideas of history and what Hekate was throughout history. You bring an intensely personal reflection of your practice to the world, and I absolutely adore you for it.
Oh, thanks. Well, that's really the only way I know how to do it. Like in the past, I've been at this like for 3 decades or however, the only way that I can make peace with my witchcraft and my understanding of Hekate is from a deeply personal internal space.
Yeah, and you do an excellent job at it. I'm very happy that you're out there doing your work.
It's just a blessing, and it seems to resonate with people. And I was kind of worried. I thought maybe a couple dozen people might be interested in what I had to say. That's it. Yeah, I was kind of wrong.
I know how you feel. When I decided to start this podcast 2 years ago, I thought it's something I need to do, and I had reasons and inspirations for it. And I thought, well, maybe 15 or 20 people might like it. And 2 years later, I'm up over 10,000 downloads just from my site alone. That's not counting iTunes or Spotify or anything else out there. So, the work that we do reaches the people it needs to reach, I think.
It does. And I think people need to hear what you have to say. And I think people need to hear what I have to say, when you do bring a different perspective to the table. And I think it resonates with people when you're sincere.
Yes. Yes, it does.
That you don't put that wall between yourself and your community, whether it's a podcast or a blog or a book or a course.
Absolutely.
And you're willing to kind of put yourself out there and be like imperfect and make mistakes and just be who you are. I think that there are a lot of people that really appreciate that.
Now, what is your favorite paranormal or witchy, occulty kind of TV show, movie, or book? You decide.
Oh, wow. These questions of yours.
You don't like my questions?
Oh, they're fabulous questions, but it's like, I got like 1,000 things. I can't just pick one quality. You know what book I really like that just popped to my is I think it's Neil Gaiman's The Ocean at the End of the Road or the Lane. Have you read this book?
No, that's one of his latest ones. Yeah. I haven't read that one yet. It's on my wish list for all you listeners out there. It's on Amazon.com. My name is Lonnie Scott, in case you forgot.
It's I like that one. I liked his portrayal of the witch. I mean, in a lot of his books, I like the portrayal of witches, but I like that story. I read that one just last summer. I read buckets of novels. And I read a lot of magical realism. So not really so much horror, but, books that kind of walk the line between horror, reality, magic, in that kind of zone, that liminal zone.
Yeah.
That's the zone I usually read in. Like, I don't read like a lot of Stephen King or anything like that anymore. I read, so if you want to talk about magical realism novels, I could talk about those for hours because that's been my big kick for this past year. I'm reading a really wonderful ghost story. And a lot of times I've discovered, like, I'll say, like, oh, I'm reading this really wonderful ghost story right now about this murder and this and that. And then I'll say, but I don't read horror books.
Right.
Because to me, it's like at Halloween, it's the same thing. It's like, oh, like someone came to visit and they're like, oh, this is the only time of the year your house looks appropriate. Because, it's like I've got bones, I don't find them scary. I find dead things super comforting and wonderful. I don't find them horrific. The things I find horrific are like, television things that I would consider horror would be like making of a serial killer. One of those types of shows to me is horror. If it's a lovely show about ghosts or demons, that's not really scary. So TV shows I loved the new Hill House series on Netflix. I thought that was phenomenal. Super well done. Did you watch that?
That's coming up next. I've been binge watching my way through a couple other shows, and that's on the docket.
No, I really, really enjoyed that. I also watched, I was sick last month, so I watched a bunch of TV. I watched that Castle Rock. It's part of the Stephen King universe. I don't know if you've heard of this show. That was really good. The Shining, of course, if you want something more traditionally horror. The original Salem's Lot miniseries. See, I could just go on. And But again, if it's
that's all
if
right.
it's just a nice ghost story about murders and demons, then it's not really. I don't really consider that horror.
No, I don't either. All right, you've only got a couple more questions to go,
Okay.
and I'll set you free. This one I think you'll really like. It's one of my favorites. Every place has its own local lore, its own local folklore. Renowned haunted places, local legends, magical hotspots, things like that. Where you live, what is one of your favorite places in the story behind it?
Oh, okay. I've got a few, but I'm going to go for one that might appeal to Americans. So Prospect Village has one of its historic claims to fame is that the HMS Fantôme sunk here. Do you know what the HMS Fantôme is?
No.
Okay, so this is a good story. You don't know. Okay, so are you Googling it right now?
No, I'm letting you tell it.
Okay, so there's we call it going up the shore. So the coast here is really rocky, like granite cliffs. So when you go up the shore, it means you're going up the cliffs. So if you go up the cliffs, there's this kind of huge hunk of granite that goes about 400 feet above sea level. It's called High Head, the High Head Trail. It's a pretty famous trail. And I call it Hecate's Rock because that's where I usually go to observe the dark moon and honor Hekate. There's a marker up there, and I'll send you the picture of it so you can share it with your Patreon subscribers. And it says the HMS Fantôme was sunk here in the date. The HMS Fantôme is super famous because the arsonists who burnt down the original White House were returning to Prospect. And the ship they were on sunk just before they docked here in Prospect.
Oh, no kidding.
So that's a cool ghost story, right?
Yeah.
So Prospect has a long history of rebels and privateers and whatnot. But I thought it's a cool story that Americans might get a kick out of.
That is a really cool story.
So don't make
I don't have.
Don't make us come down there and burn down your White House again, okay? Straighten that shit out.
In all fairness, all my listeners are not Americans. So.
I'm just joking. We're not going to not advocating for burning down the White House.
No, absolutely not.
Absolutely not. It's a historical
Absolutely
story.
not. That's right.
We have a convent here, a former convent. It was bought this summer, and it's being renovated into some kind of fabulous, like, third or fourth summer home for some rich people. But it was empty it was a bread and breakfast for years, and then it was empty for years. And that was a convent, but it was also an orphanage. And there's a cemetery on the property. The gravestones aren't marked, but it was an infant and child cemetery of unmarked graves. So that has some really dense energy attached to it, if you know where the spot is. What else? Oh, yeah, we had Toby, our house ghost. He was, I think historically, we did try to like figure out, me and some of the other villagers tried to figure out who this Toby actually was, like if there was a historical record. And there is kind of a story of a boy who was killed down on the docks. So it kind of mapped up. You have to understand Prospect a bit. The big highlight in Prospect Village each year is a group of volunteers who aren't witches, who just love the paranormal, but who live here and who are like descendants of the original colonialists. They put on a weekend of ghost tours, 2 nights, just 2 nights a year. They do the Prospect ghost tours, and they tell all the different stories, all the different ghost stories of this place. It's really fun.
Those are fun.
Yeah, it's really fun.
I like it. If I'm in any place long enough and I've got the time, I'll go on whatever local ghost tour I can find. I just think they're fun.
Yeah, we do too. Like there's a ghost tour. Let's go. We've gone on ghost tours, like in Boston and New York, and it's just what we do. You know what I mean? Like, yeah.
Yep. Nope. I get it. I told you. I think we could all be good friends.
And if it's one of those ghost tour, like those trolley ghost tours are the best, where you don't actually have to walk all the time.
Yeah, that would be better.
Right?
All right. I've got one more question for you, and I'll let you get out of here.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
This one comes from Tim Ferriss. I don't know if you know who he is or not, but he was one of the inspirations for me even having a podcast. Probably one of the actually is the number one podcast on iTunes. It seems like the last few years.
Yeah.
If you could have a gigantic billboard anywhere with anything on it, metaphorically speaking, getting a message out to millions or even billions of people, what would it say and why?
What would it say and why? I want to kind of say something more witchy and be like, magic is real. But I think I would.
Yeah,
I think
it's fair.
But I think what I would actually, if I had the power to do this, to put up a sign where millions of people would see it, I would say it's later than you think.
Nice. Yeah. Now that has an instant series of things that just immediately hits me and comes to mind. But I mean, what is your intention with a phrase like that?
I think it just sounds a whole lot more real than something like live your truth.
That's true.
Martha Beck has a great quote that's live your truth, consequences be damned. But she follows that up with, no one ever says this part of the quote, is that because the consequences are much less severe than what you imagine. But I think it is later than we think, like it's always like, well, we're going to do that thing tomorrow, or do whatever tomorrow, or tell someone I love them tomorrow, or write that book tomorrow. And I think it is later than we think that we should really take advantage of what we have now, because you never know what's going to happen. One of my sister's best friend's husband, young man, just passed for completely suddenly this week. And I've been thinking of that all week, because this woman had put on her social media that was her message, having just lost her husband. It's later than you think. So whatever it is you're planning on doing, you better get to it.
Yeah, I think I'm going to put that on a Post-it and stick it on my computer screen. I love it.
Get to it. There, that's it. Maybe not. It's later than get to it.
Nah, that doesn't have the same. I don't think that carries the same punch.
I'll say it in Nova Scotia, and I'll say, "Give her bye." We say here, "Give her."
Get your silly gibberish off my show. All right. Well, go ahead.
I was just going to say, listen, buddy, because that's it. That we say everybody's buddy in Nova Scotia, right? Listen, buddy. Not gibberish.
All right. Well, that is the end. Again, thank you for taking the extra time to do the bonus section for my Patreon subscribers. Again, words are hard today, people. It's been a lot of fun talking to you, Cyndi. I really appreciate this.
Thanks. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say I enjoyed it too. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
You're fine. And everybody out there, thank you again for being a member. Tell your friends, your family, and your familiars. Come join Weird Web Radio membership and enjoy all the extra benefits. Stay weird out there, my friends. Do you want to hear how they just answered that question? What famous person's resting place would you most like to visit? That and many others, including what they think about the afterlife, what they may or may not do in cemeteries, what are their traditions and magical practices that have to do with the dead, folklore that surrounds their homes, and so much more, available for only $5. $5 a month. Even if I make more than one episode in a month, it's still just $5 a month at patreon.com/weirdwebradio, or go to weirdwebradio.com and click join the membership. You can find me on Instagram at weirdwebradio. You can find me on Facebook as Weird Web Radio, or come join the new, fun, and exciting Weird Web Radio Facebook group. Thank you again for being here. Stay weird out there, my friends.